Welcome back to another episode of the Amateur Hour Podcast. I am Jacob and Colin is here.
Hello!
We're talking about load management, one of the hottest topics in the NBA right now.
Yeah. This is
Specifically, Kawhi Leonard. I think it's really only Kawhi Leonard.
It's always been centered around Kawhi Leonard. It's started from Kawhi.
It's the Kawhi Leonard talk, last week when the Clippers had to face the Bucks on Wednesday, he opted to sit out to rest up for the game the next day against the Portland Trailblazers. So, load management, huge last season.
He only played, I think it was 60 games last year.
I'll have it up in
I think he only played somewhere around 60 games
last year.
He
played last season 60 games.
And, I think there's a number of perspectives you can look at it from. I'm going to look at it from a couple of them. In the first one, I'm going to look at it from a fan perspective because I think it's kind of disrespectful to the fans in a way because there are a lot of families who can't even afford to go to a game. There are families who probably can only afford to take their kids to one game a year or one game every 5 years. If you go and your childhood idol is Kawhi Leonard, but he's sitting out because he doesn't want to play, doesn't that kind of piss you off a little bit?
Piss you off a lot.
Yeah. As a fan, that would suck, especially because now, basketball ticket prices are higher than ever, especially in Toronto.
Well, there'd have to be kids, too. I'm 20. If I went to a
Yeah.
If I went, let's say I went to the Raptors game versus the Clippers, and he didn't play, I'd be cheese. Or even last year, if I went to a Raptors game, Kawhi didn't play,
yeah. And it's that was the only chance you could have gone to see him play. From a fan's perspective, it sucks. Now we're going to look at it from a player's perspective. And I think the league, especially with Adam Silver now as the commissioner, he's been a players first kind of guy. When he took over for David Stern, he wanted to make it very clear that he was going to be pro player on a lot of the topics that would be controversial, kind of just like the load management. So what he did was he eliminated a lot of the back-to-back games, and he started to do that. But from a player's perspective, if you are injured, I think that's the only reason why you should not be playing. If you risking an injury, I think that I don't think that should be a valid enough argument for the league to allow a player to sit out a game.
My complaint with this is he missed the Wednesday game against the Bucks. They lost by 5.
And that was probably a primetime game.
It was a primetime game. It was a primetime game. And then the next day they played the Trailblazers, and they won by 6 points. Kawhi played. And then they had all this time off, and they play the Raptors today. I think they'll already... By the time this podcast is up, that game will already have happened. Mm-hmm. But they had from Thursday all the way until Monday, a break. So I don't understand why he couldn't have played in that back-to-back.
Yeah, that's
Number 2, they lost by 5 to the Bucks, who are a threat. Giannis is up there for MVP talk with Kawhi right now and LeBron. Those 3. Mm-hmm. How on earth are you going to sit out that game to play against the Trailblazers in an easier game the next day? Why would you sit out in that game against the Bucks where you're going to be tested, where it's you versus Giannis? You stop that guy in the playoffs.
Are you saying you think it could be a bit of him not wanting to hurt his reputation? I'm not saying that. I'm just or he doesn't want to risk being dominated.
No, I'm not saying that. I just think that it's a little soft on his part for sitting out the tough game and playing the easy game because they lost by 5 to the Bucks. If Kawhi
played, it could have been different.
I can see a 5-point difference swing towards the Clippers if Kawhi plays, and then they probably can beat the Trailblazers without him. But how can you shouldn't you relish the opportunity of playing the best players, the best teams? If you want to go, you went to the Clippers to outshine LeBron. You want to take over his city a little bit, Mm-hmm. But in this scenario, this is the prime time game, national television, and you sit out the hard game and play the easy game. No respect to Portland, but you're not as good as the Bucks.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think a lot of media businesses like Fox, ESPN, all the big media communications companies, I think once their current deal with the NBA expires, they might want to revisit the deal and be like, look, we don't want to pay to nationally televise a bunch of your games if your star players are going to sit out.
I feel like when any of these deals run out, DAZN is going to grab the NBA.
I could see it.
I definitely think DAZN is going to be all over those kind of deals. Like
Yeah.
the NFL, like the Premier League.
Yeah,
Like I think DAZN's going to start taking over
that's fair.
in terms of this.
Another angle I want to look at it is from the business side of it, because on one side you could say, well, we want to preserve our star who could be the cornerstone of our, team and our brand. He could be the cornerstone for years on end. We want to, take precaution. Like, you obviously don't want to drive your sports car like an idiot and risk crashing it the first half an hour you got it, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's one side you could argue. But you could also argue that, like, look, like, yeah, we know that we're still going to sell out tickets. People are still going to come to our games. It's not like it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not like it's going to be a big deal. But when it comes to concerning with, like, customer satisfaction and people who pay to watch the games, I think that's kind of, the team would be more in the wrong in that.
Yeah,
standpoint,
the
if
one
that
thing
makes
I'll say
sense.
about load management is that I don't think Kawhi plays every game of the Raptors postseason run without having been load managed throughout the season. I think his ability to play as strong as he did in every single series, like he's the best player in the playoffs, best player in every single series.
Do you think that was attributed to his load management?
It's got to be a little bit. I think I would have liked to see what would have happened without that, because there's not really a base for comparison if he could have done it with playing 82 games. But like LeBron said, if I'm healthy, I'm playing every single game I can.
And it also could be that, like, Kawhi's injury that we keep, like, seeming to talk about for the past 2.5 years now is that quad injury, and that was the main reason for him sitting out that entire season in San Antonio. Like, maybe his injury is just so unique that it's like a constant, everlasting thing, and maybe he actually does need to sit out and literally load manage. Like, maybe his injury is that unique. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it could be like a reoccurring thing that
I
just,
don't.
like, like, swells up after you overwork it or whatnot.
Yeah, you know what? Because I'm attributing the Raptors' postseason success to him being load manager this season. I'm not completely against the load managing aspect from, like, a team standpoint. Like, obviously as a fan I'd be upset, but from a team standpoint, if I can have him for the playoffs and this is how I'm going to do it, I don't mind it. What I mind is that, let's look at the last 3 games by the Clippers. So the Sunday before last, they played the Jazz. Kawhi 18-point fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. They came back to beat the Jazz. Like, great game. He had 4 days off. Came to Wednesday against the Bucks. That game he decided not to play. The next game, Thursday against Portland, he played. And then they're playing Monday against the Raptors, which is at the time of recording tonight. So my problem is that he elected to play the Portland game rather than the Bucks game.
Yeah.
I think that's soft. I'm very unhappy about that. Especially that's national TV. That's prime time. You versus Giannis, and you decided not to play.
Yep.
And you know what? We're probably going to see that again this week, because this week, Wednesday, the Rockets and the Clippers face each other prime time on Wednesday. The next day, on a Thursday, they play the Pelicans. And he'll probably play against the Raptors tonight. Like I said, this podcast is going to be out after that game. But plays against the Raptors. Probably not going to play against the Rockets, but then play against the Pelicans.
It'll be interesting to see, and if he actually does sit out these games, then we'll start seeing that, trend happen. But there's a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of perspectives you can take.
Yeah. A lot of stakeholders.
I think there are some good aspects to it. There are some bad sides to it, but it's really on what side of them you fall. But yeah.
Overall, for me, load management's okay. I just don't like when you don't relish playing against the good teams. I don't like that. How do you feel? Sum up your take.
My whole take on load management is I don't mind it too much, but the thing that I don't like is the fact that it's just like he they'll just sit out games that they prefer to, and it's just like,
Yeah.
well, that could have been a game that we won, but instead, like, that could have been like a vital divisional matchup, but instead you just wanted to sit out. Like, yeah, I don't think it's bad especially if you're a team that wants to go to the finals like the Raptors were. I don't mind it. But
and the Clippers.
And obviously the Clippers. I don't think you would mind it, but if it was in a different situation, I think it would be taken differently.
And that's real. And this one off. Thank you to listening to this episode. Join us again soon for some more daily content.